Hey everybody, Tyler with Meeple Mountain here, bringing you another board game review. This time from our friends at GreyFox Games, who have given us a copy of Clans of Midgard to check out, and I'm excited to showcase this one. Here's the quick review. This game's really fun. Clans of Midgard is a draft and write game for 2 to 4 players. It is simple and easy to set up and teach, and I love how digestible and approachable it is, but there's a lot of fun to be had in here. You'll take on the role of a Viking leader, trying to gain an edge on your opponents by playing rune cards that you'll be drafting over a series of 4 rounds. These will play into some area control and different scoring opportunities that you're going to play out. Everything that you do is beneficial, but how beneficial really is it? There's a lot to unpack, a lot of strategy in this fun little game, so let's get to the table and check out Clans of Midgard. Welcome to the world of Clans of Midgard, a draft and write game for 2 to 4 players, where you'll take on the role of a leader of a Norse tribe, attempting to claim the most glory, most victory points over 4 ages or 4 rounds of the game. To do this, you are going to be utilizing rune cards. Every player will have a set hand of rune cards that they will draft in each round of the game, and they will dictate what you can do, how you will play the game, and the points you will score on that particular round. Every round is going to have a randomly selected god card as the patron deity for that round. You will be using your rune cards to present offerings to that god to gain their benefit. There are 10 total gods, so you can see over 4 rounds there'll be 2 and 2 from age 1 and age 2. There'll be a lot of replayability just on the gods that come up alone, not to mention, of course, the cards that you draft, giving this game a lot of replayability. Every round, you will be sending your warriors out to the board, scoring points, looking to do all kinds of different collection and scoring opportunities that we'll talk about in just a moment on your card. And at the end of 4 rounds, whoever has the most glory, the most total victory points, is the winner. This is a very, very simple game that's easy to understand, easy to teach, but there is so much strategy in how you play and execute your cards and how you can try to kind of outwit and outplay your opponents on the board. So with all of that said, let's jump in and start taking a look at some of the individual components here to help better understand what you're working towards. Let's start with the core base component of the game, which is the rune cards that really determine every action that you take in the game. So let's take a look at some of those cards and talk about everything that they do. Here we have a good smattering of the different types of rune cards that you will encounter in a game of Clans of Midgard. Now, just as a reminder of policy, you're going to, in a 4-player game, have a hand of 7 rune cards. At the start of your turn, you're going to pick one to keep, pass them clockwise for the first and third rounds, counterclockwise for the second and fourth rounds, get the new hand of cards, pick one to keep, pass and repeat until everyone has their hand of cards they'll be using on this particular round of the game. These cards have many different symbols, and we're going to talk about all of them, but just kind of, this is a good chance to see that there is a mix and match of all of these types of things. So any card could have any combination of things on it, but you have to really find the ones that optimize your play and your strategy and what you're trying to work towards. So let's start at the top and work our way down and talk about all the symbology on these cards and what they mean, and then we'll look at a scorecard and kind of talk about how those connect and interplay. So first we have offerings. Offerings are these world tree kind of Yggdrasil symbols here on the top left. Those are your offering points that are how you get benefits from the gods. The gods are various patron deities that will come down to bless the clan that works the hardest for them. We're going to take a look at them in more detail here in our next cut, but they basically will give you either in-game powers that are quite powerful or game-end abilities that will give you additional scoring options or kind of ways to outplay your opponents. So gaining the favor and patronship of these gods is very essential to winning a game of Clans of Midgard. And the way that you do that is through offerings. Now, there are many, many offering cards in the game. If you have the most offerings in your hand at the end of the round, when the cards are revealed, you will gain that god in their patronship. If you are tied with another player, for the most same number of things, so say we each had 9 in this case offerings, whoever has the highest single card value would gain that god. So for instance, if you had the 6 and that was the highest one, you would then win the patronship of that god. So that is offerings in a nutshell. Next, we have these little angel wings here, these Valkyrie symbols of different colors on the top right. Those are literally your Valkyrie symbols. We'll talk about them a little more when we go to combat, but they will let you potentially roll the Valkyrie die, which will allow you to add additional troops potentially or check off something on your scorecard. So that's a way that you can get a little edge over your opponents on the area control aspect of the game. They also, again, if you don't fight in that particular territory, can be checked off of your scorecard and will equate to additional points at the end of the game. So they're always a good thing to have. either way. Top left, you have the alphabet. You have letters, various symbols and letters that are on almost all, if not all, of the cards in your rune card deck. They are, again, a kind of a set and column collection that we'll look at in just a moment, but you're basically using them to check off a one-time box on your card. And as you fill columns and rows with these letters that you've collected, you will gain victory points for the end game. On the right, we have some monster hunting symbols. You're trying to collect pairs, at least 2, of the same symbol. So out of these cards here, we could try to do 2 Draugrs or 2 Trolls. If you have 2 or more of the same symbol, you hunt that particular monster for that round, and you can gain victory points based on the monster type and, of course, how frequent that card shows up in the deck. The Kraken is the most difficult to find, but he's worth a lot of points. So that's a little monster hunting symbology there. In the middle, you have Glory. Glory is a fascinating piece of this game. It's one of the things I really like about this game. Glory is straight victory points if you have a certain score. So the way this works, your first set of Glory can be any number that you want. So for instance, say I had these 2 cards here, a total of 4 Glory. That would be, I would write it down as 4 victory points. It's 4 Glory for me. The next round, however, I have to get more Glory than I did in the previous round. So if I had 4, I need to have at least 5 now in order to score it for victory points. Because of course, as I do glorious, interesting things, people aren't going to be impressed if I keep doing the same thing. It has to be bigger and better every time. So it's a really fun kind of push your luck element of the first round of the game. I can go crazy and have 9 Glory. That'd be so crazy. That'd be so cool. But then I definitely can't score any Glory next round, most likely. And so there's some kind of push your luck element almost there where you're like, man, do I want to get a really high Glory score this round because it's going to hurt me potentially later. So it's a fun element of the game where you're kind of trying to just ramp your Glory up round after round to keep scoring those points. So that's the purple kind of number in the middle there. That is your Glory. On the left, on this kind of ribbon in the middle here, we have some symbols on the left. Those are your clan symbols. So clans, there's 4 clans in the game, and whoever you support the most will support you back, and they will bring you and give you troops in the area control portion of the round. So if you have the most, and if for you is maybe Snake Clan, they're going to allow you to deploy troops to the symbols or terrains that are shown on those cards. So you'll be able to deploy multiple troops to multiple areas based on how many symbols of that particular clan you're able to collect. So there's a little, again, kind of a set collection thing going on here, but merged with the tactics of where do you want your troops to go on the board. And we'll talk about that when we look at the main board and talk about combat a little more at that time. So that is clans and combat and your terrain symbology there on the middle bar. At the bottom, the last thing we have are your ships, your Draugrs. They are going to basically be the items that you're doing some collection with, again, based on the terrain type that matches. So when you have these ships, when we look at your board, I'll show you your little checkoff card. There are various ships for each terrain type in the game. There's 5 terrains in the game. And as you check those ships off, you might cover up or get to a deployment symbol, which will, again, allow you to put more of your warrior cubes out onto the board of that matching terrain type. So it's another way to kind of score points and get your troops on the board where you need them so that you can win the all too valuable area control aspect of the game. So that is how your cards work. Again, you'll draft and select your hand, so you'll build a strategy around the cards that are available to you, trying to kind of do all of these different set collection and strategies for scoring points in tandem, which is a fascinating kind of brain burner from time to time of how do you optimize this. But this will all make more sense as we look at a few more pieces of the game. So let's look at a scorecard and talk about all the scoring opportunities, and then we'll round up by looking at the main board and talking about area control and battle. Here is your little checkoff card that you'll be using in every game of Clans of Midgard. Now, it is worth pointing out, this card is very small, so I'm going to do my best to kind of point things out with our little handy-dandy pencil here, but it is quite tiny. Here's finger for scale. Everything is very, very small, but that's okay. Everything is in here that you need. So let's talk about all of these things. With your cards in mind, let's talk about the scoring. So as you can see here, this is your letter collection. As you noticed on cards, they all have those letters and symbols on the top left. You are literally looking to check them off. If I had that letter, I would mark that particular letter off. I don't ever need to collect that letter again, but I'm basically working my way through all of these letters. And if I fill a row or a column, I will then be able to score the points associated with that particular item. So obviously you can see the most valuable are these tough letters over here and these bottom rows here. But whatever card you find is going to be helpful in some way. But there is, of course, the strategy of I don't really want to get the same letter again. You want to diversify your hand of cards as much as you can. Down here are the boats, as I mentioned, your little raiding ships. As you get ships, you can choose which of these you want to mark off. You'll mark off the ship and move, from left to right as you progress. Whenever you get to these little deployment symbols here, like we have here on the blue, you will be able to deploy a troop to that type of terrain, which helps you in your combat. So you can actually use these boats to kind of strategize and get as close to these deployment symbols as you want, and then try to use a bunch on one particular age to get extra troops kind of into a fight to kind of tip the scales in your favor, which again, this will make sense as we look at the battle board, but that's what the boats are for there. Up here, slaying. Slaying is killing those monsters. We talked about these symbols up here on the right. If you collect sets of them, you will kill and slay that particular monster. So every round, you'll put out the score, if you have any, of how many monsters you slayed on that particular round. Glory, my favorite thing. We talked about glory. I love glory. That's the purple number in the middle. You have to have increasingly high numbers of glory or you don't score anything. So that can be a positive and a negative. Territories, this is where you'll score your victory in the board for the area control aspect of things. Very, very fun. This also ties into your Valhalla horns. This is kind of a thing if you do not win. We'll talk about this more on the board as well, but if you lose troops that did not win fights, you will start scratching off these horns from top left and kind of going down these rows. And as you fill these up, you will score additional points. So even losing in area control can be valuable and a way to make points. This also ties into your Valkyries. You see there's one Valkyrie of every color here on this little board here. If you're in a fight in an area where you have a matching Valkyrie, say I'm fighting in the plains, the yellow area, but I have the yellow Valkyrie, I will get to roll this Valkyrie die that could let me scratch off my Valkyrie symbol or give me one or potentially two troops that I can add to that particular battle to, again, help tip things in my favor. If you roll the Valkyrie die and you add troops, that's all you do. If you scratch off the Valkyrie die with the scratch off symbol, or if you have a Valkyrie in an area that you don't have troops, so e.g. you aren't fighting there in that place, you will get to scratch your Valkyrie symbol off. And you'll get points at the end of the game, 1 to all the way up to 7 points, depending on how many of the Valkyries you have scratched off. So you'll take all of these totals, you'll add them all together, plus any god bonuses for the end game, tally all of that at the end of 4 rounds. That will be your total score in a game of Clans of Midgard. And that is kind of the strategy of how you want all your kind of cards and strategies to interplay to keep scoring all of those items as quickly and as beneficially as you can. And that's what really the fun and the brain burn of the game is, how do I kind of get all of these little pieces of my engine moving simultaneously. So let's take a look at the area control board and talk about battle and placement of units. All right, it is time to talk about the combat kind of area control aspect of the board. On the main board, it's going to be double-sided, so depending on the player count, we're at 4, so this is the side we'll be using. Here's reminders for your slaying of monsters, the points that you'd get as you slay them, and your clan selection board. So there's going to be 5 areas on the board with some thresholds for how many units or cubes need to be in that area to trigger a combat. If we get to that amount or more, a combat will trigger, and that's how we'll know that we're ready to fight. But how do we get troops on the board? Well, we can do that by those boats, deploying troops to the color that matches the boats, as we showed. And the main way that we do that is with clan cards. So let's take a look at some clan cards here. Again, just to kind of talk about that. So we see here we have our clan symbols, and we have places that those particular units would deploy. The way this works, you're trying to get one clan to have the most faith or belief in you. You're going to support them the best. So you're going to tally up in your hand the total number of cards matching a particular color. So we have 2 ravens and 2 serpents in this kind of illustration here. Then you're going to see, if we're tied, which clan you support with the tiebreaker down here. So you always go left to right. So we see if I have 2 ravens, 2 snakes, ravens are on the left. That means I'm going to be supporting the raven clan, and I get to deploy troops to every place with a symbol on cards with ravens. So in the instance here, I'm going to be putting 2 troops into the grasslands area. So I would come over here and say I'm blue player, I would add 2 troops into that section. The serpents do not allow me to add any cards because you only can have 1 clan supporting you at a time. So that's one of the main ways, that, and again, the boats are the main ways that you'll get troops out onto the board. Now, let's say we hit a threshold here at the 4 location here in the plains. When this happens, you will then have a battle. If I, or the green player in this case, had the Valkyrie die, we would get to roll it and see if we slash off that Valkyrie symbol, or if we get to add additional troops to the board to kind of push things in our favor. Let's say I got to add a troop. This goes in here. I am clearly very victorious because it's just simple math at this point. It's just how many cubes to how many cubes. Clearly it's 4-1, very much in my favor. I win. The thing that I would do next is I would scratch off that symbol on my board, the plains symbol here under my battle. You're going to get points if you win in every location from 1 to 15, so you want to kind of spread your wins around the board. Then I'm going to take all of the cubes that were victorious, and I'm going to put them up here in my glory place. We'll call it like kind of a Valhalla situation where I've been a victorious winner. Anybody who lost cubes that were in fights that didn't win, they're going to then scratch off those Valhalla horns down here that we talked about before from left to right. So that's kind of their consolation prize. At the end of all the combats, however many cubes that everyone has, like let's say green won a different fight up here, you're going to tally up these number of cubes, and that's going to be your score for the round in combat. So for here, I would put in the total number of cubes that I had in the victory track up here, along with any of the circles, terrains that I've first time won in. I'm going to mark those off as well. So at the end of the game, you're going to tally up your points from how many cubes were successful in battle and were winners, and then you're going to tally up how many unique places you won at least one victory in. You'll add those points together, and that is going to be your territories, your combat score. So you can see there's kind of some fun strategy there of like, do I really, like, I'm going to win, do I want to really like load a bunch of cubes into one place because I know I'm going to win, and now all of that is kind of immediate points? Do I want to spread out to win in different locations and meet those thresholds, because obviously that can be a lot of points if you win in a diverse location. Now you notice we go from 4 up to 7. The mountains are always kind of difficult to get a lot of fights in because the threshold is much higher than, say, the plains, where everybody wants to fight all the time. So that can be a trick too, is like these fights are really tedious because you got to make sure you have a lot of cubes there. So do you rush and load a ton in early, or do you wait for other players to diversify? The area control aspect of this is something that's unique, I think, to Clans of Midgard, is kind of in this draft and write world type of game, and it's really fun and keeps things kind of on your toes a little bit. There's a little bit of strategy and unknown as to like how these little battles are going to unfold. The Valkyrie die adds just enough, like a little dash of luck and strategy as well, and it just comes together in a really, really fun formula. Let's close things out by taking a look at the god cards to give you an example of what those offerings that you would be collecting would go to and how they can impact your game as well. Here we have all of the gods in Clans of Midgard kind of laid out for you guys to look at and review as I talk about them, but the thing to know is there's 5 Age 1 gods in gold here, and there's 5 Age 2 gods. In every game of Clans of Midgard, you're going to shuffle these kind of decks independently and select 2 and 2. So you're going to have a total of 4 gods for the 4 ages, 4 rounds in the game, but 2 from Age 2 and 2 from Age 1. So there will always be some kind of replayability, asymmetry as kind of what pops up in a particular game. And if you start reading through these cards, you can kind of get the feel that there's really 2 options available. There are some game end condition type gods that will give you something at the end of the game. So for instance, if I gain Thor's favor, he's going to be worth 2 VP for each god you have, including Thor. So he really encourages me to win all the gods because that can be a lot of points in my favor. He kind of sets me out on this path of offering collection for the rest of the game. Where some others are focused very much on letters and rows, scoring victory points for warriors left on the map. There's all kinds of different things that can kind of build into your asymmetry and your strategy. Some will give you in-game abilities that you can focus on throughout the time that you play. For instance, Odin. Each time that you would roll the Valkyrie die, instead you mark that Valkyrie in Valhalla and deploy a warrior to its territory, which is very nice. It actually allows you to get more troops out automatically and get those points from the Valkyrie checkoff. And so these things are always very positive, very powerful abilities that can help set you apart from your opponents in how you play and how you can kind of have some tactical advantages over them. So collecting those offering cards can be very competitive and can be definitely the difference between a victory or a loss in Clans of Midgard. Again, I love that there's enough gods here to keep things fresh and keep every game a little different and exciting. Definitely gives that replayability factor. And that is everything that you need to know to jump in and have a really good time with Clans of Midgard. I am so glad that GreyFox gave me this one to review. It's probably not a game that I would have picked up or discovered on my own, but man, it was actually a really, really good time. Flip and right, the and right genre niche of the gaming world has always fascinated me. I love that type of game. I love cartographers. That's one that I think is really great. Welcome to. There's just been so many reinventions of the and right niche of the board game world. I'm always excited to see what a new game will pepper into that formula, because there's always something, right? There's always some new niche, and I love it. This being a draft and write was very fun. Not entirely unique in that sense of utilizing cards to do things to impact your scoring and your functions, but I do think the area control features on the board were by far one of the neatest little implementations of this, like, because you're really doing an area control game utilizing draft and write mechanics, and that was a fun hybrid merge of that, and that was really, really cool, well executed. It's very simple. Nothing about this game is incredibly, complex or deep or gonna, burn your brain for hours and hours. We're not playing Twilight Imperium here, right? Like this is a lighter game, and it's wonderful for what it is. The glory mechanic, I kind of harped on that before. It was so great that you kind of have to push your luck of, like, do I want to try to just keep getting more and more glory, and how do I do that? How do I execute on that as efficiently as possible? The cards give you a lot of options and a lot of flexibility, but there's definitely a lot of competing priorities for how you're going to score things. So you have to make choices, because, for instance, I had a letter on a card. The card is really good, but I already scored that letter. So I was thinking to myself, do I keep this card for the other benefits on it and forego getting a different letter? Do I try to really diversify and make sure I'm just getting a different letter every time in the game? What's going to be the most lucrative for me? And those choices are really fun to think about and to kind of navigate through. But Clans is a really fun game. Obviously, I think that it plays better at a higher count. It is only for up to 4 players, so this is for a smaller gaming group, but it plays in a very short amount of time. As you can see from this video, even the teach is very light, very simple, very clean. The rulebook is well laid out. Every formula, every symbol is very clearly explained here. I had no trouble understanding the game even before I sat down to play it when I read through this book. So great job there, GreyFox. It's a good rule book. It's clean, it's concise, and it gets you in and gets you where you want to go. If you're looking for a drafting style game that has that and right formula with a little dash of area control, a little bit of conflict, none of it's very mean. It's not very take that E, because even if you lose in fights, it's still good for you. So there's lots of fun to be had in this formula that's not a super mean or competitive game. And I think it has a fun flavor and a fun feel to it that'll bring you coming back for game after game as those gods continue to shift and change and your cards in your hand continue to shift and change. So very high marks for this one. I kind of was coming in with good expectations and was even then still pleasantly surprised with how great of a game this is. So I would recommend you guys check it out if you like the and right formula of games kind of in that niche. It's definitely one to check out that is fun. So really appreciate GreyFox sending us this to review. I'm really excited to get this to the table more with my friend group, and I think you guys would enjoy it as well. So I'd encourage you to check it out. Thanks so much, as always, for coming to Meeple Mountain. I hope that you guys will continue to come to us for all of your board game-related review needs. Hit the bell, like, subscribe, do all the things. Let us know what you'd like to see in the comments, as we're always looking for new things to review. And we just put this content out because we love board games like you guys do. But I want to thank you guys for checking us out, and I hope this video gave you a good idea of what to expect in Clans of Midgard, what's in the box, how it plays, all those things. But thank you guys for coming, and as always, happy gaming.
Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Check out these links to find some other games you might want to bring to the table. This is Tyler Williams, signing off.